And now our host, Stephen Lee Morris.
This week we are joined by Stephen Sachs. Stephen is an internationally produced playwright, and he is the co-founder and co-artistic director of the much heralded Fountain Theatre, which he co-founded in 1990. Stephen Sachs, welcome to Animal Farm.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to have this opportunity to chat with you.
How are you, and how is the Fountain Theatre?
I'm well. I'm okay. I'm hanging in, like everyone else. Good days, bad days, pushing on. The Fountain Theatre is doing about as well as could be expected. Like everyone else, our doors have been closed since last March.
Now, first, I guess the best news I read really about anybody, but particularly about the Fountain Theatre, is that you were licensed got permission from the city to have outdoor performances. And what does that mean? And when does that start realistically? And what does that actually mean?
Well, the outdoor stage is going to be a huge game changer for us at the Fountain Theatre, and I hope also for the city of Los Angeles. It came about last year when we were closed down because of COVID.
Yes.
We were months into the pandemic, and I'm sitting downstairs at the Fountain Theatre in the theater itself and looking at my intimate little space, which only has 78 seats, 80 seats. And our intimacy has always been a blessing, but it also turned out to be a bit of a curse, because even with the COVID regulations, guidelines in place with social distancing and everything, if we were to bring in an audience and sat them 6 feet apart, in my little theater, that would mean that my 80-seat theater would go down to 12, which does not make for a robust financial model.
I could be cynical and say 12. That's about the average attendance of most intimate theaters I see.
But
that's not true. That's actually not true. On a bad day, it's true.
Yeah, sometimes it's true.
Yeah. But that's not what you want to plan around.
No, it's not what you want to go to your board of directors with, as this is, an idea of a good plan. So I'm sitting there, and then it just struck me, why don't we go outdoors? We own our building. The Fountain Theatre owns its own building, which is its own enormous blessing unto itself. And we also own the parking lot. So I thought, let's go outside. Why not set up an outdoor theater in the parking lot, clear out the parking lot, bring in a stage, bring in chairs, seat them correctly, and perform outdoors.
And what's your capacity in this outdoor theater, this imagined outdoor theater?
It'll be 84 seats, so it's almost exactly the same. Right. Plus, we'll have some cocktail tables for refreshments and dining, and we have the gorgeous weather. And what could be better than being outdoors, in Los Angeles on a warm summer night, enjoying theater? So. That was the idea. There always is like the big idea, and then it's the making it happen. Thus began my journey into city planning land and getting permission from the city of Los Angeles.
And how did that go about? Who did you actually appeal to?
Well, I had meetings with our council member, Mitch O'Farrell, who is fabulous, and he's always been a strong advocate for intimate theater, for theater in general in Los Angeles.
Yes.
And then I had to apply to the city planner's office through the city, because it turns out I had to get a special permit to gather people outdoors. It was okay if we were in the building, but in order to bring that same number of people outside and do performances, I needed a special permit, because the Fountain Theatre is also in a residential neighborhood. So that just meant a ton of meetings, a massive application package that I had to fill out and do reports and do sound testing and neighborhood impact studies and all that stuff. So anyway, I went down that road and did it, and ultimately got permission from the city to go ahead and do that. So,
okay, I have two questions and then we'll go to bigger picture things. One is, well, do you have any idea of when you may be actually performing on that outdoor stage?
we're shooting for June. We're hoping for this June, actually.
Okay.
To start. We're going to load in the stage in the next couple of months. And our plan is to begin performances this June. Again, now that we have the city sanctioned, we're now just waiting for the COVID numbers now to come down. It's all now about getting permission from the Department of Public Health to allow us now to gather as a group outside. At least outdoors.
Yes. Now here's the rudest question of all. I can't wait to come to see your premiere, but unfortunately your parking lot is otherwise occupied. Where are 84 people going to park in East Hollywood?
Well, our parking lot normally held about 32 cars. So we do have street parking, but we are making an arrangement with a restaurant around the corner to do parking there as well.
Yeah. I remember your street parking. Yes, I remember parking in Atwater Village and walking back to the Fountain Theater. It was about a 2.5 hour walk.
Yeah. It is exactly, but it's picturesque though.
But the restaurant thing is good news. No,
we're going to be seriously. We also have a new partnership with our vendor across the street who has offered his parking lot free of charge. So we have a lot of community support.
Oh goodness, that is really good news. And then the final question about this very specific area of interest is, how is your programming going to change, or is it going to change now that you're under the stars rather than under a rather low ceiling?
Well, it's interesting. Some of the pieces that we were looking at doing because of their intimacy, I think still will fit and play better inside. But the idea of being able to bust some of these shows open on a larger stage outside in the open air just feels so exciting to me.
Yes, I can imagine.
My plan for the theater is to do both. Ultimately, is that we will perform outdoors in the summer, and because the stage itself is modular, it's made up of 18 different little platform. It's not little; they're steel deck platforms, like in a rock and roll show. It all breaks down, and we're going to store it. So then once COVID hopefully is contained, we then go back inside. We'll produce indoors, and then every summer, my plan is to bring the stage out and do outdoor theater at the Fountain Theater every summer under the stars in Hollywood.
That sounds lovely. I mean, we've got Theatricum Botanicum. We've got obviously Independent Shakespeare Festival, so there's clearly a precedent for that. Going back, I guess, to Sophocles, which if it was good enough for him, I don't know why it's not good enough for us.
Exactly.
In terms of, you are participating in these weekly conference calls, Zoom calls with artistic directors around the country. I'm recording this late February 2020. What is the mood, the tone? How are people doing? How's the community doing?
We are hanging together. It's been a remarkable journey, these weekly meetings. They started after the pandemic first broke out. And it was really, I think, initiated by Gary Grossman at the Skylight.
Right.
And for those who may not know, what it is that every Tuesday, all the artistic directors of many of the intimate theaters in Los Angeles, we meet on Zoom together. And it started out as kind of a therapy session, really. At first, it was just kind of commiserating.
Yes.
Saying, what are we going to do? How are we going to get through this? What are you doing? This is what I'm doing. What do you think?
Right. That's important.
Yeah. And as you know, Stephen, LA is such a spread out landscape. And in Los Angeles, it's very easy for all of us art makers and arts patrons to be in our own little village and our little fiefdom, and we don't really get out in interact with each other as much as we would like to. So these Zoom meetings really provided an opportunity for us to see each other again face to face. And so at first they were kind of bitch and moan sessions at first. And what are we going to do? How are we going to survive?
Yeah.
There was a lot of panic and fear.
Yeah.
And then because a lot of it we didn't know. We never knew how long is this going to go on? Is it just going to be 2 months, 3 months, and so on? And so it's been up and down the mood as the pandemic itself has progressed. So I think now.
Have you seen? I mean, there were stats out. Some of them were published by American Theater Magazine, specifically about our area, and also there's been local. The LA County has also done its own questionnaires. But have you seen members of that community just fold up the tent, at least even temporarily, saying we just can't afford the overhead and not produce at the same time? Have you seen the numbers dwindle? Was the panic justified, or was it paranoia?
No, it was justified. I know of some theaters in our own community who have been forced to stop. A big problem for many of us in our community are that the theater companies don't own their own building like the Fountain does, and we're very fortunate, but most do not, and so they are renting their space. Those who even have a building rent them, and rents were already going up, and now when your doors are closed and you have no income coming in, you're sitting there empty. How long can you?
Right. Well, that is the question. Yeah.
Yeah. So some of them have been able to strike deals with their landlords. Some have not. I know one theater in particular who had plans to acquire a new building, a new facility a year ago, and now that it looks like will not be happening. So it's been devastating for many intimate theaters.
Is there been any way for the community to rally against the theaters that are specifically under siege by circumstances, by economics, and keep them afloat, or is the community at large just doesn't have the resources for that?
Yeah, I don't know how we could help financially. How we have been able to help each other in a very tangible way is by sharing information and resources, grant applications, funding sources. We've also been battling this AB5 situation, and so we've been very active in advocating for that. So we advocate for each other as much as we can, and helping each other with COVID compliance. And so we're all financially strapped, so we don't have a checkbook perhaps to offer, but we offer our other resources.
We had people in from LA County from the grants and research department, and they talked about they were distributing COVID relief funds to arts organizations, and I have conflicting information. Their information, they were quite humble about what they were actually accomplishing. They said the deficit, and they had the numbers for the financial hit that the theater community had taken, and they said the amounts they were disseminating was something like 5% of those losses, which I would seem would be nothing. And yet I just spoke with an artistic director who said that their theater was saved from that very grant. I was wondering if you have perspective on that.
Yes, it's sort of a mixed bag. I know the PPP loan, which was the government loan, which is actually not even a loan, it's forgivable. So it's essentially a grant. That was a huge help for us and for many theaters. And now there's this large stimulus grant loan that is available. The federal government has allocated a couple of, I think $2 or $3 billion for arts relief. So that's a huge help. And it does feel like lately there's been a flurry of grants, opportunities coming in on emails. More and more organizations now are offering small business loans, little arts grants. But Some of them, when you actually go in and take a look at them, some of them are only for like, $5 or $10 or $15,000, which, I mean, to you and I, it sounds nice, but for a theater, it's not very much. So it's kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah, that's. I don't know what your budgets are for productions, but I can't see that could barely fulfill one very modest production. That
right.
kind of.
I mean, that would barely keep me in peanut butter and jelly, for a year, which is essential to me.
Yeah, peanut butter and jelly.
Peanut butter and jelly. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. What is it? Are you envisioning realistically, if you could be candidly and not be too overly optimistic about it? Just be honest, unless you're feeling overly optimistic, and that's, what do you see coming through this in the next, say, 6 months to 12 months? Do you see things stabilizing? How long? Well, let's take AB5 off the table because that's a separate battle for now.
Right.
But how long do you see before, just from the pandemic crisis, things kind of stabilizing and theaters being permitted to put on performances indoors in their venues safely at the capacity that they were doing in February of 2020, of 1 year ago?
Well, my honest opinion is if the numbers continue as they are and the vaccine continues as it has been, and we don't get hit with one of the new variants.
The variants, yes.
Right, which of course could just turn everything upside down. But let's just say things continue as they are.
Yes.
Then I think by the end of this year, I think by this fall, I think some theaters will be able to produce indoors under specific COVID restrictions and maybe at reduced capacity, maybe only 50% capacity. And then certainly by the top of the next year, I think it'll open up more and more and more.
Okay. Well, that's hopeful.
Yeah.
Sort of. I cringe when you say 50% capacity. I mean, what theater wants to?
I know.
I mean, I could understand if they were 800, 1,000 seat theaters, but these 35 seat theaters to begin with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. What did they do? I don't know.
Yeah. We keep looking forward and keep working together, I suppose. And we wish each other well as much as possible, and try to imagine a future where doing what we love to do is viable, I think.
And another component to this too is not only theaters being ready and reopening and doing our side of the equation, there also is the other side, which is the public, and that's getting the audience to come back.
Well, that was the county research said that people were extremely skeptical about coming into spaces, mainly because the people they didn't trust were their fellow audience members. They didn't trust they would be vaccinated. They didn't trust they would take precautions. That's what the research showed. Right. That was research done several months ago. That may have changed, but it's cause for concern. I have a feeling we're in for still a long haul here, and things will normalize, but it may take longer than we expect.
It's going to take longer than we had hoped. That's for sure. There was a wave of a new wave of despair in the Tuesday night group a few weeks ago when it became clear that 2021 wasn't going to turn the corner as quickly as we had hoped, because I think we all were looking for the beginning of the new year. It's a new administration. It's going to all be better. But then and then when it was discovered how much, how the event horizon just keeps getting pushed further and further down. Yeah, I think a lot of us just thought, oh Lord, how are we going to get through this?
That virus is just not on our wavelength.
Yeah,
it's just not.
It's just not. It's just not.
Yeah. Well, Stephen, good luck. I look very forward to seeing your premiere production in your outdoor space, which sounds terribly exciting, whatever it may be. Do you have an idea for the first play?
I do.
Do say.
I'm holding that information. I'm not sharing that yet, but I will.
Just so clandestine.
I know.
Stephen Sachs, thank you for joining us.
A pleasure.
And next week, we are joined by theater critic for the LA Times, Margaret Gray, who will give us her observations on where things have been where things are right now and where things might be in the future.